Today we're going to look at something called newsletter columns. This is lesson 23 in our book. We're going to be showing you how to create columns within our Word document. We'll show you how to set the column width, and we'll talk a little bit about column break and how to place that into the document. Now to do this, we need to have our book open. Again, we're in lesson 23, working with newsletter columns. We're going to go to page 303 in our book. And on this page, we can download our doc file. I'm going to enable the editing, save this file to my Documents folder, create a new folder with today's date, open that folder, and add my initials to this file. Now with this file open, I do want you to use your Show Hide button to turn that on. And the reason why is I want you to see the section break that is in place in this particular document. Notice that there is a section break right here, a continuous section break, and actually I want you to delete that section break out. So the way that you're going to do that is by clicking anywhere on that section break. That'll put your cursor to the right of the section break. And then on the keyboard, we're going to press the delete key. Not the backspace key, but the delete key. We'll delete that section break out. What we're going to do is we are going to deal with columns in this particular document, but that particular section break is going to be put in automatically when we add the columns. So what I want to do is show you how I deal with columns whenever I'm working with columns. Looking through the rest of this document, it's a simple one-page document. There are no other section breaks. So your cursor, where it should be right now, is in front of lions and zebras, in front of that L. What I wish to do is I wish to create this document as a two-column document. I want Safari with Voyager to not be two columns, but everything else below it I want to be two columns. So we're going to do this by going to Page Layout. Your columns are going to be part of the Page Layout ribbon. And you will see a Columns option. And what we're going to do is we're going to click Columns. And while I could choose 1, 2, 3, etc., I always end up going to more columns. It really is the best way to deal with working with columns. Gives you all your options available to you. I do want this to be a actually the book starts off as a 3-column document, so we're going to do a 3-column document. But I do not want to apply this to the whole document. This is the part and the reason why I wanted to come into the dialog box so that I can specify where I want to apply these columns. Often when I'm doing columns, the setting that I want to pick is the setting that says this point forward. In other words, leave anything above my cursor alone, don't touch it. But from this point on, make this, in this case, 3 columns. I click OK. As I said a minute ago, that section break will reappear, and here it has appeared because we've set up columns. And the reason why the section break is there because I've got a change in formatting. I'm going from 1 column to 3 columns. And so with that change in formatting is this continuous section break. We haven't dealt with continuous section breaks. We dealt with the next page section break. But a continuous section break is what will get placed in a document whenever we do columns. And the reason why I don't place continuous section breaks in manually too much is because so long as you use that setting in columns that says from this point forward, it will automatically enter that in. So here I've got my columns. I've got lions and zebras. Okay, and so you will see that goes down to the bottom of the first column, word wraps over to the second column, and then so on. Now let's make a change to the way this column thing is working out. So I'm going to make sure that my cursor is in any one of these three columns, doesn't matter where. And I'm going to go back to columns, and I'm going to go back to more columns. Here we've got the one column that would put this back to the way it was before, two columns or three columns, but there's also this left and right option. We're going to choose this left option for a minute. As you can see in the preview, that's going to create a skinny left column and a thicker right column. But along with this, what we want to do is we want to adjust the options that are available here. So we're going to change this left column. Instead of it being 1.83 is what mine's showing up, I'm going to change that to an even 2 inches. And with my spacing being set to a ½ inch in between, that's going to make column 2 a 4-inch column, which is what I'm looking at. Now at this point, I'm not going to choose that this point forward option because I am just changing the columns in the current section that I'm working with. So I'm going to leave this as this section. And when I click OK, that will modify my columns now so that I will see one column on the left that's a skinny column, and then another column on the right that is a thicker column. Let's take another option, going back to columns and more columns. Let's pick the 2-column option. The 2-column option gives the illusion, as I take a look here, of having 2 even columns. In fact, looking here, it says 3 inches each. That is what I'm looking for. Let's take one other option in here. Let's put this line between in here, this line between, and click OK. And so as the option suggested, there is actually a line that's going in between. But the columns, while they are even in the sense that there's 3 inches here and there's 3 inches over here, you'll see that the left side goes all the way to the bottom of the page and the right side does not. It only comes down a certain amount of distance. Well, let's see if we can find a couple ways that we can balance this out. I'm going to start by coming down here to where the zebra is at the bottom of the first column, and I'm going to put my cursor in front of the Z of zebra. My goal is I want to push this over so that it becomes the top of the next column. And so with my cursor here in front of zebra, we're going to go to our breaks button. We've talked before about the page break. We've talked about the next page section break. And we've even mentioned the continuous section break in this lesson, although we didn't do it here. We did it by inserting a column. But there is another kind of break that we can put in, and that is this column break. What a column break does is it tells the text, wherever the cursor is, to move the rest of the text to the top of the next column, wherever that happens to be. So I'm going to click on this column break. That's going to move zebra over here to the top of the next column, which happens to be on the same page. All right, and that will move this down. And it does give us a little more balanced columns. The left and the right side are closer. It's still not quite perfect because the left side is longer than the right. But it is a little closer, and with my show hide on, I can indeed see my column break very easily here. Now, what I want to do is I do want to show you as the final thing that we want to do here is I want to create completely balanced columns, meaning I want the left side even with the right side, and even, well, let's leave it at that. To do that, I want to get rid of some of my columns here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my column break. I'm going to click in front of this column break and press my delete key to get rid of it. Because I just put it in, I could have used the undo button. That would have worked. And I'm going to set my column setting back to 1 column. The very last thing I want to do is go back up to the top of my document, and where that section break is, I'm going to remove that section break one more time. If I want truly balanced columns where both sides are practically equal, here's what we do. With our text entered in as it's been entered, what we do is we select the text that we want in our columns. So I'm going to select all my text here. And with this text selected, now I can go to columns and choose 2 columns. This is one of the few times when I'm doing balanced columns when I don't actually go into more columns. I'm going to click on 2 columns. That will create my 2 columns. Now, you say, but Mr. Miller, this isn't really balanced. One last step. I'm going to click at the end of my text here, and I'm going to add one more section break. I'm going to go to breaks, and I'm going to add a continuous section break here. Once I add the continuous section break in, that will then balance out both columns. I'm going to zoom out here so you can see this a little better. And you can now see that the 2 columns are evenly balanced by simply adding in that section break. Now I do want to note that with my cursor here, it is still set to 2 columns, which means that if I typed in more text here, it's going to go to the bottom of the page and then wrap around over to here. Okay, so if I've done this continuous section break here, what I might want to do is turn this last paragraph symbol back to a single column right down here. And what that would do is allow me, if I put in some more text, and here's how we can quickly get some more text in here. If you type in, let me zoom in so you can see this on the video. If you type in the equal sign and then RAND and then an open and close parenthesis, that's the shifted 9 and the shifted 0. RAND and then open and close parenthesis, and you press the enter key, what that's going to do is enter in a bunch of text. And that text, you will see, is indeed in a single column format, which is what we were wanting to do here. That way we didn't have to type a whole bunch of information in. The other thing I could have done would have been insert a Word document here. The last thing I want to do is whenever you go from 2 columns to a single column, what you typically want to do is create a line above this first paragraph. So I'm going to select this first paragraph right here, and on the Home tab I'm going to create a border. A border is this in this paragraph group, Home tab, paragraph group. I'm on my borders button here. I am going to create not a bottom border but a top border. And what that's going to do is that's going to place a line right above that first paragraph that's changed back to 1 column so that it is very easily visible that this is indeed another column in my, or excuse me, a new article in this particular lesson. So what do we talk about in this particular lesson? Well, on the page layout tab, we talked about the fact that we can add columns. We use the More Columns button to give us the ability to set the style of the column. We can set the width of the column, a line between, and What I said that I typically will use when I'm creating columns in my document is the this point forward option. We talked a little bit about controlling text flow. We did that by creating our columns. We took a look at setting our column width, and we talked about inserting a column break into our document. We also demonstrated how to create balanced columns by adding another continuous section break at the end of our columns. In this case, in the example that we gave, was 2-column view.